and gentlemen,
Your friend.
the Moscow City Circus, in collaboration with the Peking Circus and Barnum and Bailey, present you Ellen Koment,
And Karine
the woman who will not quit creating art. I had the pleasure of meeting Ellen through Karine Swenson a few years ago, a couple of years ago, when we started talking a little bit about her artwork and her career and where she was and what she wanted to do. Again, a couple of years ago, she said, well, I never signed up with a gallery. I always just dropped off pieces. So I said, well, I have a contract. You want to sign it? Said, what is it, 3 years? No, 1 year. Okay, 1 year. That contract has expired. Then we still have a retrospective going on here. I am very happy to have met her, and I'm very much in love with her artwork and her skill and her draftsmanship, and also her good spirits.
Okay, so,
Well, let me just first say that this whole front row is from Las Vegas.
awesome. Thank you for coming. Wonderful. When I moved to Santa Fe about almost 8 years ago, I wanted to see who was showing where, what kind of work was being shown, and I went into David Rothermel, which at that time was downtown, and I saw Ellen's giant paper pours, her encaustic paintings, where she poured encaustic paint onto these huge pieces of paper. And I was floored. Those paintings had such a profound impact on me that I said, I need to meet this woman. So weirdly enough, I got on Facebook and I searched for her and discovered that she had a studio in Madrid, which is not that far from where my husband and I live. And I saw that she was teaching a workshop, and I immediately signed up, and I kind of just sought her out. So it's incredible to me that all these years later we are friends and also showing in the same gallery. I kind of can't believe that. I'm such a fan. So it's an honor for me to be here with Ellen today. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've talked a lot about her life and her work. So I know the story, but Ellen, can you share with these a little bit about your childhood?
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in Coney Island in New York, and then my mother died when I was 11, and we moved. And the building in Coney Island was owned by my mother's father, my grandfather Koment. And then we moved to the Bronx, and that was with my grandfather Koment. And then my father remarried, and we moved to Manhattan. So I've lived in all three boroughs in New York, three of the boroughs in New York. And yeah, it was a nice childhood. Not usual childhood, but different maybe. Right.
Well, and you told me that what Coney Island taught you was that life was fun.
Oh, Coney Island was a great place. There was a vacant lot next door, and all the parties, if anybody had a birthday or some other occasion, they would all be in that lot next door. And it was, the whole family would gather there. It was fun. It really was fun. Yeah. I mean, then you find out that, life could be fun. And there you go.
But then, of course, when your mother died, you also kind of discovered that life was unpredictable. And
Well, that's true. My mother died when I was 11. They wouldn't let me see her when she was dying in the hospital because I don't know why, because I was a child, I guess. And so then we flew back. She's buried in Spring Valley, New York, which is her family's cemetery. So we flew back to Spring Valley, and that was, And then at the actual funeral, I cried my eyes out. It was really bad. So that's the story. And then we moved to the Bronx. And then we moved to Manhattan when my father remarried, right, to Lily.
And you went to a high school that was like an arts high school.
I went to high school of music and art. I had a poster in the subway,
Which
over
is,
there.
it's in that window.
Right.
So you won a contest for that,
I
right?
won a contest,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
And my brother thinks it's a picture of him. I have a brother that's many, many years younger than I am. And it probably was, you know. I don't know. And then from there I went on to Cooper Union Art School in New York. And where they don't, well, I went originally in as an architect, but they told me that architects would only, a woman architect would only be, not get very much to do. You would be a draftsman, basically. So I went on from there. I went back into the art department, even though I was teaching stuff to guys, math and things like that. But anyway, I went back into the art department, and we didn't do painting until the third year that I was there, because you did color theory, you did drawing, we even did calligraphy, we did all kinds of things that weren't painting. So that by the time you started painting, you were very ready to be painting. And so that was, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, next question.
So you grew up on the East Coast, but then you went to Berkeley for graduate school.
I did.
What prompted that move?
Well,
That's a big move.
yeah, it was a big move. And the California figure painters kind of attracted me. I didn't get into the Art Students League, but I did get into Berkeley. And I went there for one semester. I didn't know how to drive when I went to California, if you can believe it or not. So I had a small accident, and I ended up in a hospital. And I had met my first husband, Conrad, in Boston the summer before I went there. And he kind of came in the door for 2 days. But when I went to California, he was the only person I knew in California. So I gave him a call, and he started, being around a lot. Right? And eventually we married, yes. So, next question, madam.
Well, we talked a lot about your patron, Jack Leinstein.
Oh, yeah.
So you met Jack in California. Can you tell everybody a little bit about how that happened?
Well, I was involved with a group, a spiritual group, that did not allow you to do the things you really wanted to do. So I ended up doing some stained glass, and I worked in a bakery and a bunch of other things. And Conrad and I had a movie theater even. But, where was I? Okay, so
Jack's, it was his wife.
his wife came because she wanted me to do stained glass windows for the McDonald Mansion. And I look at those windows and I can't believe I actually did them, but I did. And then, someone else, sorry. And then Jack came and started buying paintings for me. And over the years, he's bought 200 paintings from me. So, there's a big book in the other room. You can see it, or right here, sorry. And, yeah, he's been the most important, many ways, a very, very important person in my life. So in order to get me to come to Wurlitzer Foundation here, so I didn't have the money to do it, he bought $5,000 worth of paintings. He has now over 200 of my paintings. And they're in that book right there.
And at one time, the two of you had like an email correspondence because didn't he say that he didn't know how a woman thought? Was that kind of what prompted it, or what prompted it? Do you remember?
No, I don't know. It was the first year I was here, and I had already met Mario, and we were living on the what do you call the road by a freeway? Frontage road. And in an apartment that had, a building that had 4 places with a studio upstairs and a little apartment downstairs. And Jack and I during that year emailed each other every day. So we had little email correspondence, you know. And that book still exists. It's not here. It's in my in my house.
But there is another book here
Right.
on the end of the table, the orange one there, which is a book that Jack wrote that book, right? About
yeah.
work.
He's done this for most of the artists that he collects.
So if you feel
Jack
like
is
looking
now
at that later.
probably over 90, but he was a doctor. I mean, that's how he made his money. And yeah, a very, very important person in my life. Yes.
So the question that I've been dying to ask is, you know, what inspires you ultimately? What is it that gets you in the studio painting?
That's a tough question because I've painted all my life and it's the constant. And my life hasn't been very constant. I've traveled the world. I've been to Greece. I've been to Egypt. I've been over most of Europe. I've lived in a lot of different places, but painting has been my constant. Yeah. So it's the best part of my life.
And you've lived on the East Coast,
On the West
lived
Coast.
in California, you lived in Portland for a little while,
Portland.
and
here.
New Mexico.
Right.
So how much influence does a place have on your work?
Well, I think it's pretty big.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that when I fell in love with New Mexico because I had a residency at Wurlitzer Foundation in Taos. And then I came, then 10 years passed, and I was back and forth a lot. And then I decided that this was a really beautiful place and I wanted to live here. And I made that move. I made it after I lost the job in Portland, outside of Portland. It was a little college. It was not a very big college. Anyway, so, right. Because I have an MA and a BFA, and they thought I had an MFA and a bachelor's degree. And somebody had typed this out for me, because it was pre-computers, for me anyway. So that's what happened, yeah.
So that was a
And so they
blessing in
fired me, and I moved to New Mexico. All my stuff was already in storage. What the heck, right?
That's awesome.
I made a friend in Portland, and we took a trip to Portugal and several other places, and then I finally moved here, right? So
When was that?
what?
Well, how long ago was that?
Oh, 30 years ago. Yeah.
Been here a long time.
Yeah.
One of the things that you and I have in common is our love of color.
Oh yeah, I
And your
love
work
colors.
is very colorful.
Very.
What does color mean to you as a painter?
It's what art is all about to me. It really is. I mean, look, red. Red's my favorite color. And
She likes
Yeah.
purple too.
yeah, I like a lot of colors, but if I had to choose one, it would be red. And yeah, it's the way you tell your story.
Yeah.
Because color tells your story more than anything else, I think.
I think so too. As a painter, I mean,
Right. Right.
I feel like I've kind of asked this question, but I'm going to phrase it a little differently. What is painting for you? Besides being your constant, would you say it's a kind of a form of self-therapy? Is it more about self-expression?
Well, it's more about self-expression than self-therapy. I never think of it as therapeutic. It's something I do because that's what you do.
That's what you do.
That's what I do, right? So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't have a real reason. I don't have a reason. It's just what I do, you know?
I don't think I have a reason either.
Right.
I like it. It's fun.
I like
it's fun.
it.
Fun.
I like it. It's fun, yes.
In this, I mean, when you have a show like this that has work from new work and then work from years and years ago, like, do you have a favorite painting? Do you have a favorite series in the show?
Well, I'll tell you about the chicken. I lived next door to somebody named Philip Jameson, and we were buddies, we were friendly. And he had a gallery in San Francisco for a while, and he wanted to have a chicken show. So I painted him a few chickens. I don't know. I mean, I can't really answer what you're asking. I mean, I like many of the paintings that are in this show. I do, and yeah.
Yeah. So you've been in 8 museum shows. You've shown your work in over 40 galleries. You've taught thousands of other artists and over 1,000 people in encaustic.
Right.
I mean, that's a very enviable career.
Right.
Would you have done anything differently? If
No.
You could do it again?
I loved it. Well, it was nice when I met Mario.
Well, tell us how you met Mario.
We both went to Cooper Union, but we met at a Cooper Union reunion in Santa Fe. Yeah, so it was, yeah. And we even lived in the same area in the Bronx, but we didn't know each other then. But it was a great neighborhood that always smelled good on Sunday, because it was an Italian neighborhood, and they'd be making sauce.
Sounds fun. Okay, so I have a couple of quotes. I read a lot about Ellen and a lot of what she's written, but I picked out 2 that I thought were great and will also help us kind of segue into talking about encaustic paint. And the first one is that wax is hotter, faster, and more physical than other mediums. It doesn't wait for you. Instead, it hardens, and you must apply heat to reawaken it.
And the question, okay, I'll tell you how I started. When I started with encaustics, I was in a studio in San Francisco, and someone gave me some wax. And I had no idea what encaustic was. I had seen the paintings in Pompeii, the thing, yeah. And anyway, I just started playing around with it. All I could find was about that much information in a big book about a lot of different techniques. And what they said turned out not to be necessarily correct anyway. And then I went to, I don't know, the first show I did was in 1994 in Portland. It was a picture of Jack, my pal, Jack.
Her patron.
Right, patron. And he was mostly hidden. He had given me the pictures that he had taken of himself. But
so you were actually embedding the photographs in the painting.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And they weren't very big. And I didn't really know a whole lot about the technical aspects of it. So.
But you're really one of the pioneers in the medium.
That's true.
One of the artists in the contemporary art world to sort of bring this ancient medium into the forefront again.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I found that, that wax could be very exciting. It was fun to work with. It did things I'd never been able to do before. And, yeah, I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I met Karine.
So if you haven't seen the whole show, make sure you go into the very back room, because that's where the encaustic paintings are.
Right.
Another quote that I just want to read at the end is, encaustic paint, this is a quote from Ellen, encaustic painting, as all painting, is the exploration of the internal manifested as the external.
Right.
It is a spiritual practice, a developed routine. It is an extension of our being. That's a great quote.
It's true.
Yeah, it is true.
I mean, I don't see painting as something just in the outside world. It's something that comes from within you. And, yeah. Well, at one point I was in Europe, and I took a little stained glass class workshop, and they kind of took us around, and then I had a friend in Germany, Karl Repfenig, who then set me up to go to a place where they made sheets of glass. And that was really amazing. I mean, it was a very, very, 3 people would work on making one sheet of glass, and there was a whole lot of them. And they would end up with a circle of glass. And then they would cut it and put it in an oven or someplace that sort of opened it up. So it was, that was sort of amazing to see, yeah. Jim?
I'm curious, what was the extent and what was the look of the encaustic back in Pompeii? You're talking about real Pompeii days, right?
Yeah.
She's referring
2,000
to
years old.
the Fayum portraits.
Yeah.
Mm.
So these are funereal portraits, and they're incredibly lifelike. If you Google encaustic paint, you will most likely come across the Fayum portraits. There's one I've seen one in New York at the Museum of Art, or one of the museums. They're all over, but Pompeii.
So those were realistic, but you're doing mostly non-representational,
Correct.
right?
So yeah, in the ancient
And I saw
one.
them there. And they're 2,000 years old, as a matter of fact, yeah.
So that just goes to show you, I mean, the paint itself, encaustic paint, has been around since antiquity. But now, artists are doing much different
things.
with it. I mean, there are artists who paint realistically in encaustic. There's one who lives in Santa Fe, Paco Benitez, who does beautiful realistic portraits,
Right.
both in oil and in encaustic. But the nice thing about being a modern artist is because of the camera, we're no longer a slave to the representational image. And it's given us a lot more freedom, I think.
I agree.
That's my take.
Anybody have any further questions?
What are some of the first thoughts you have if you have a blank canvas? I mean, you have to have an idea of what you're going to put on it because you have to assemble those.
I think about color, what colors I'm going to use. I think about what's inside me, not what's in my head, but what's inside me and what it's going to express.
Yeah.
So I think it's largely color for me. Yeah, I used to drive up the California coast to make little drawings of the trees up there around the coast. I haven't done that in a long time.
And this one as well.
Yeah.
This one is Trees on the California Coast is the title of it, which I know isn't necessarily your title, but...
Yeah. But that's true. When I went back there a couple of years ago, and it just didn't sing the same song anymore, I didn't feel...
Too many
any
cars
connection.
going up the coast?
I'm sorry?
Too many cars going up the coast?
Well, there were a lot. Unbelievable amount of traffic, right? More questions? Yes, sir.
So, yeah, when you started, you talked about the first time you were given some rocks, and tell us
Right.
about what happened then. That's the first part.
Well,
of the
I was-
question. And the second is, I'm sure it was small. What made you go big, large?
In encaustic, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was
encaustic.
very experimental. I tried a lot of different things, and eventually I realized that you could make it into a big painting if you wanted to. It took me probably a couple of years to get to that point. And, yeah, I mean, what can I say? I don't think I plan things very much. They just come. They come out of me. Right? So,
Very intuitive painter.
that's a good word, intuitive.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, Hal.
So you've spoken a lot of it coming out of you, and then a lot of your pieces also have landscape
Well, that's
ideas.
true.
So does a lot come from the environment you're in as well?
Right, because if you realize that I grew up in New York, and then suddenly the California coast was amazing to me. I'd never seen anything even close to it before. So that was a big, big, big influence on many of these paintings here, I would say. Right. Any other questions? Well, Karina's going to do a little demo of encaustic. Are we good?
And certainly, if you want to walk around and ask Ellen questions about
I'll walk around with anybody that wants to walk around.
You don't have to watch me. But I am going to paint.
I've got a simple question here.
Okay.
These are big.
Yes.
I mean, and you've got this medium, and you have to keep it heated.
But these are
You have to move very fast.
These are oil paints.
Oh,
These
okay.
aren't
But the
encaustic.
smaller ones, I mean,
But
even with
there's
the smaller ones, you have to move fast.
Yeah, you do.
Because it begins to congeal, it doesn't.
Right.
You can
maintain
reheat
its-
it though.
Yeah.
You can reheat
You
it.
can reheat it.
So how long would it take you to do one of these? I mean, if I.
Well, remember, these are oil paint. I painted with oil and acrylic
Yeah.
for 30 or so years before I started with encaustic. So, yeah, it was a different kind of thing, right?
For your large encaustics that you have back there, those are fairly large. What would the time take for one of those?
The ones under glass. The pour
The one
paper.
under glass are pours.
Right.
So if you pour, it comes pretty quickly, I usually select the colors first, and then I begin pouring them, and I have an idea what's going to happen when one color crosses another color. But in the terms of the regular encaustic, like we looked at before, I guess they just come out of an intuitive place. I don't think I can't tell you that I have a plan when I start a painting. I may have a feeling about something, but not really a real specific plan. Yeah.
Well, and the beauty of being a painter is you don't have to clock in. So you never know how long something takes necessarily.
Yes. Mario.
You had never spoken about the custom easel that you had to have built.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of these paintings weigh 40 to 50 pounds
Mario
of wax.
was kind enough to have an easel built for me that goes up and down. And we met when I first came to Santa Fe, right? But anyway, he had an easel made. I forgot about that easel. I should be using that now. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down.
So you can lay it flat.
Then you can lay it flat and stand it up and look at it. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. What?
That sounds great. It would be handy. I could use one of those.
Right.
Yeah, I can market those.
Questions?
Any more?
Susan?
What's the largest wax painting you've done in cost?
Well, probably some of those ones in the back. You really can't go as huge as you can with oil paint. It would be tough. Mario?
You did do a painting that was 2 feet wide by 8.5 feet long.
That's true. It was a commission.
In
It was a
encaustic?
commission.
In encaustic.
Oh,
And then I went to New York to see it, and I was very upset because they put it in the kitchen.
Better than the
Oh,
bathroom,
well.
I think.
It paid me well, so I couldn't be too critical. Other questions?
Any more questions?
Your work is beautiful. In any medium, your work is just stunning.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, Marius asked me to do this show when I first met him, and I came in actually to show him Mario's work. And then after I went back, I stayed, and Jack had a little apartment for his son, and I stayed in there surrounded by all my old paintings. And I realized, oh yeah, I should do that retrospective. And I am, I think it's amazing.
I do too. It's
Yeah.
a great. Well, let's give Ellen a hand.
And Karina too.
All I did
Okay.
was sit here. I'm gonna
So
go.
Karina's going to do a demo in the other room, and if anybody would rather just walk around with me, we can do that too.
And there's snacks in
And
that.
there's snacks right over there.
She shows here. Ellen wanted
in the middle. You know my
Yeah,
mind?
a lot of
Put
competition.
yours too, because you
It's
don't
very spread out, but it's like, no, it's just
We're both going to be in the Ladies in the Art
Which
Show,
you said
yes,
reminds
coming
me
up.
of-
I know, congratulations to both of you.
You're
I've
playing
been
the
meaning
game
to.
where
How do you color the wax, or do you buy it in those colors?
So I start with a clearly made colors. I actually will kind of carve it off and thin it down because
Are
just powder pigments.
oh, pigment.
Pigment. This is the color.
I see.
I like playing that.
So the heat that I'm adding now is what fuses the top layer into the previous layers, and I can also manipulate the paint with the heat if I add